We'll be back on the record, continuing with the direct examination of Lieutenant Ball. Is that correct? No, excuse me, it's Stubbs. I apologize. Detective Stubbs. Mr. Wood, have you worked out your technology issues there?
Yes, I want to thank Josh, the IT guy, for taking care of that for us.
He's very competent. You may proceed when you're ready.
Thank you. Detective, I'm gonna start playing this and then pause it and have you tell us what's going on when you recognize what it is.
This is my body cam footage as myself and Lieutenant Ball approach the apartment number 175 the first time on the 26th.
Okay.
Her car's out there too. In the back, it's blue. It's blue Subaru.
Hi, you Lori. Lori, I'm Lieutenant Ball, Police Department. How are you? You got a minute? You alone or that help? Or?
My brother's here.
Okay. This is Detective Stubbs.
Hello.
So, we're here.
Yeah, this is a big mess. I just talked to the guy on the phone.
And what did he ask you?
He was just saying that he wanted to do a well check on JJ.
So, JJ would be where?
He's in Arizona.
Who's he with in Arizona?
He's with one of my friends in Arizona.
Oh.
Hi.
Oh, hey. You got a notepad?
No? Want me to get one?
No. Come here. You mind if he comes in?
No, come on.
So,
Sorry.
who's the friend he's with?
My friend Melanie. Her
Melanie.
son has autism. Her name's Melanie Gibb. I gave him all the information on the phone.
Okay, so he can call him?
Yeah.
Birth. Discord.
Yeah. What is all this?
We're a little
What is
concerned
Why?
because, well, the officers who were here earlier
Yeah.
were checking and they got a bad vibe that like something was going on here because nobody knew anything about a child. They weren't talking.
It's because a
What's
lot of
going
stuff
on?
has gone on. If you want to know, it's a lot of stuff. So
Well, that's why we're concerned because it just was kind of weird.
it is very weird. I've had to move around a lot. One of my brothers is trying to kill me. Not the brother that lives here, obviously. He's kind of my protector. My other brother that was in with my husband who was trying to kill me for my $2 million life insurance policy.
Now,
So a lot of stuff has gone on in this last year. It's been a horrible year for us. I've had to move around. And so I was going to move back to Arizona, put my son back into the school there because I tried to put him in school here, public school at Kennedy.
okay.
He went for 2 months. We tried it, but he had such a hard time. Now, the person who called is my sister-in-law, but she's his natural grandmother. He's adopted by us. Okay, so her son, who is a drug addict,
Okay.
had a baby with a girl who's a drug addict, and they took him from, CPS took him, gave him to the grandmother. She came and got him, and then she wanted us to adopt him, which we did. And we loved
By
him and taken
us,
care.
who we
My
call
husband and I, who died earlier this year.
Okay.
He passed away. Since he
Sorry to
passed
hear that.
away, she's been trying to fight me for him and being really horrible to me and that kind of stuff. She's kind of the paternal friend.
Okay, thank
Does
you.
that make sense?
That's
I'm
what I
sorry.
mean. The paternal grandmother.
He has autism and ADHD. He doesn't really talk to people. Like he's very special needs. So I had him in a special needs school there. She was trying to, so what happened was my husband, who we were married for 15 years and had raised all these 5 kids together, switched his life insurance policy to her, right?
To
his sister,
okay.
who got $1 million when he died, and we got nothing. For me to raise JJ, and all the kids got nothing, and everybody got nothing. She got $1 million. So I knew she was going to try to sue me for him, or
JJ?
yeah, because she now has this $1 million, so she can hire people to help him, and I have nothing.
But you have legal custody.
He's my son. I adopted him when he was 2 years. We had him from the time he was 8 months old till 2 years old. So she does nothing that wants to cause me trouble. So I don't tell people the truth about where we are and what we're doing because of those reasons. So I look like a suspect, but I am not a good person. Raised all of my kids. I've done everything that I'm supposed to do in life, but everyone is causing me trouble right now. So
We don't want to cause a lot of trouble. How long have you been here?
we only been here since September.
Okay.
We moved up here in September. My daughter to go to BYUI.
Your daughter goes to BYU?
Yeah.
Does she live here?
So it's been a nightmare, but I'm gonna go back to Arizona so I can put him back in the special needs school. He couldn't do the school here. It was too hard for him. He would scream and cry, take him to school. The principal would have to come out, try to drag him out of the car. Like, it's too hard. But I just don't tell people where I am. I don't tell her where I am ever.
Okay.
And she doesn't have any legal rights to anything. Like, she's been horrible to me since my husband died.
My understanding, she never called to try to get the child, you know, hey, I'm interested in the child back, you know, but
I know, but she sends me these emails with like the date and like she's putting up court stuff, you know, like she's documenting. I haven't heard from him in all this time. And so I've told her that he's fine. But
See, and we hadn't heard any of that as far as,
I'm just saying she's doing this as part of that,
Yeah.
is my understanding.
and our only concern in this whole thing
Yeah, is that he's fine.
is the child.
I got it.
And so that's where we're at on the, and then
So
we
I
were just a
called
little
her.
weirded out when, you know, and I understand now that we've heard your side of the story.
It's awful. I feel like I'm being tracked all the time. Like, why are police coming to my
Well,
door?
they
What's the idea?
They said they were out visiting with two guys, and I'm assuming one's your brother.
Who is this? Yeah.
Who was the other one? The other guy they were visiting with. There were two.
Visiting.
Well, we had two detectives over here trying to,
Looking for you a little while ago.
Oh, because I was at the store.
and they ran into, well, probably one of your brothers in
My
the back
brother
here.
and his friend, probably.
Oh,
They've
who's
been
that?
moving. Chad.
Chad from around here?
Mhm.
What's his last name? Yeah, okay. All right.
So it's just a mess that is constantly causing me trouble.
Chad the Daybell?
He's an author.
Doesn't he live like out in the, isn't that the Chad Daybell that, didn't his wife pass away recently? Is that him?
I don't know,
I bet it is. Chad the Daybell. Yeah.
but it sounds familiar as an
I
author.
think I know, I think I know one of his. He's got a couple of daughters. Is that
He has lots of kids.
okay. I'll bet it's safe. All right. Well, you need anything else? Sorry to bother you.
Thank you.
Okay.
We don't mean to be a
I'm
problem.
sorry
We just-
that people are constantly knocking on my door looking for me, and I just don't want to be found. So
Have you had problems? Because I think we only had.
well, the reason I'm moving is because the brother that was going to kill me, that we found emails and texts with my husband at the time, came showing up here. So he found out where I was, and he was knocking on my door.
No, this was your brother?
One of my brothers.
He showed up here and was knocking on your door.
He lives in Kansas.
And you said something about you were getting threatening emails?
Well, no, just after my husband passed, I found emails and texts between them that they were planning all this stuff to get rid of me.
Do we need to worry about him coming over?
Well, that's why I'm moving back. I'm moving, and I'm not gonna be in a place, I'm gonna live with my friend, Melanie, don't tell anybody her name, Dib, because I don't want anything in my name. I put the apartment in my name, but I've been staying over here with my brother because he protects me.
Okay.
He's very
I just
protective
want
of
to know
me,
if he
so.
shows back up, you know, you can call. Take care of it.
Well, that's what I'm saying, like, I just, like, just a nightmare. I mean, I canceled the insurance policy since my husband passed, so there's no money if they can. And what are they gonna do with JJ and Tylee? Like, what do people think?
Okay.
So-
Well, if you have a problem, shows back up, feel free to call us. We'll come and run him off or something. Okay? All right.
Appreciate it.
Okay, we'll get out of here. Sorry to bother you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See ya. Not.
Detective Stubbs, did you return to that same apartment that day?
Yes, when Detective Hermosillo and Detective Hope could not contact Melanie Gibb a few minutes later from this encounter, we went back to her door to inquire about how we could get a hold of Melanie Gibb.
And is that what is on the second film file here?
That is
Video file?
correct.
Also, they want us to ask Lori if she would. So we can get Melanie is the friend.
Wasn't Melanie the one living up here? Supposed to be her daughter, Lori's daughter?
No, this was the friend that she's going back down to live with, she said.
Right. She's got a daughter named Melanie.
Let's just see if she will call and have Melanie get a hold of Hope and just do a verification. Because apparently she's not answering the phone down there.
Lori? Hi, Lori. Sorry to bother you again. We're having a little trouble getting a hold of your friend down there,
No.
Melanie.
Well, they were going to Frozen 2 today, so they may be at the movies.
Could you get a hold of her at some point and say, can you please call back the officer that's been trying to call you?
Okay, sure.
Because,
Yeah, because I think they are at the movies right now.
okay, he's been trying to call her or other officer. She's not answering.
Okay.
But if they're at the movie, that's,
Probably at Frozen 2 right now.
yeah.
Because that's the one thing he wanted to do.
I'm frozen too.
Yeah,
Frozen 2 is so
yeah.
cold here.
So,
I don't know if I can handle a whole winter here. That's probably why.
yeah. So if she'll just return his call, that'd be great. Okay, thanks. Yes, sir.
Detective Stubbs, I asked you earlier about your getting certifications regarding computer and cell phone forensics. Have you been involved in any analysis of cell phone records related to this case?
I have.
Okay. Are you familiar with location records which can be found on electronic devices?
I am.
Can you tell the court generally, explain generally about location records that can be found on electronic devices?
So it all will depend on the device itself, who the provider is that is tracking location, web searches, number of different apps will track your what you're doing.
Okay. And do you know how those records are generated?
Well, it just depends on the provider, what kind of stuff that they are searching for, what their target, if you will, their target market is. It can be, what you searched for, so they can better plan for that stuff, or GPS data, latitude, longitude, dates and times that you do things.
Okay. Have you used location information from a cellular device successfully in any other cases?
I have.
Have you analyzed any location records of electronic devices as part of your investigation in this case?
Yes, I have.
Detective, are you familiar with Alex Cox?
I am familiar with him in this case, yes.
Okay. And do you know who he is?
I've never met him, but I know he is the brother to Lori Daybell and the brother-in-law to the defendant, Chad Daybell.
Okay. Do you know where Mr. Cox is now?
I have been told that Mr. Cox died in December 2019.
Mr. Pryor,
Hearsay.
Mr. Wood, there's been an objection as to hearsay.
I'll rephrase the question.
Okay,
Through your investigation, do you know of the death of Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Okay. Through your pursuant to your investigation, why were you interested in Alex Cox's Google data?
The reason we were interested was we knew Alex lived in an apartment very close to Lori. We also knew because of the relationship between Lori and Chad being, brother-in-law and sister, that Alex may have some information onto where the location of the children may be.
And were you able to obtain Alex Cox's Google location data?
Yes, we were.
How did you do that?
We issued a search warrant. We had information of many known phone numbers, email addresses for the individuals in this case. We obtained a search warrant that we issued to Google and received a return from them with results.
And you may have already answered this. Did the warrant ask for just Alex Cox's data or multiple users?
No, we were requesting multiple users from the information we had obtained.
Okay. When you received a return on that warrant, was that return accompanied by a certificate of authenticity?
Yes, it was.
Your Honor, the state would ask for what's been marked as State's Exhibit 15 to be shown to the defense and then handed to the witness.
Exhibit 15 will be shown to Mr. Pryor. Exhibit 15 is now being shown to the witness.
Detective, do you recognize that document?
I do.
What is it?
It's a certificate of authenticity that was accompanied the results of the search warrant from Google.
And have you reviewed that document before?
I have reviewed this document, yes.
And are you familiar with its contents?
I am.
Detective, is that document signed under penalty of perjury?
Yes, it was.
By whom?
The Andrew Jordan.
Okay. Does that certificate of authenticity state that the record was made from information transmitted by someone with personal knowledge?
Yes, in paragraph 1, it states that.
Does that certificate of authenticity state that the record was kept in the course of regular conducted activity of Google?
In paragraph 5, it states that as well.
And does the certificate of authenticity state that the record was that making the record was a regular practice of Google?
Also in paragraph 5, it states that, yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I would ask that certificate, State's Exhibit 15, be entered into evidence.
No objection, Judge.
Exhibit 15 will be admitted.
Your Honor, I'd ask that what's been marked at State's Exhibit 16 be shown to the defense and then handed to the witness.
Exhibit 16 is being handed to the witness.
Detective, do you recognize that document?
I do.
Have you seen it before?
I have.
And have you reviewed it?
I have reviewed this document,
And are
yes.
you familiar with its contents?
I'm sorry?
Are you familiar with its contents?
I am.
Detective, when you sent your search warrant for the accounts from Google that you talked about, Did the accounts provided by Google include Google subscriber information?
Yes, that is what this document is in reference to.
Okay. And is this document a true and accurate representation of the subscriber information you received for one of those Google documents?
Yes, this is one that Google sent us for one of those accounts, yes.
Your Honor, the state would ask that State's Exhibit 16 be entered into evidence.
No objection, Judge.
Exhibit 16 will be admitted.
Detective, can you look at the top of the first page of Exhibit 16?
Okay,
And do you see where it says Google subscriber information?
I do.
Is there a name identified with that subscriber information?
The name of Alex Cox.
Is there an email associated with that subscriber information?
There is, the email is homerjmaximus@gmail.com.
Is there any other data on that subscriber information page? To help
There is
you?
a subscriber phone number, which we had previously identified as belonging to Alex Cox.
Okay.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Detective, when you received the return on that search warrant, what was the size of that document in terms of pages if it were to be printed out?
Oh, the size of this entire document was thousands of pages.
Okay. We've discussed Alex Cox's Google location data. If that were to be printed out, do you know approximately how many pages it would be?
So just the location data for this particular account, if you were to print it out, would have been over 28,000 pages.
And if you were to open that data up on a computer, what format does it come in?
If you opened it up, you would see it in what would be like an Excel spreadsheet.
Okay. And what kind of information is located on that spreadsheet in general for Google location data?
So for Google, it would be the date timestamps. It would be the latitude and longitude of the said, if you will, pings or pins that were placed. It would have a radius of error that Google has interpreted. It would have what they know as the device being used to access the Google system. And then there's another number that is really associated with Google and whatever inner workings they have that would have to be Google that explains it.
Okay. Due to the large size of the data, I think you said it was over 28,000 pages of user location data, correct?
Correct.
Have you prepared any summaries of data you found in that document?
I have prepared some, yes, some documents.
Can you tell us about those documents?
So what I did was I took an aerial photograph, and that I took specific dates and times of interest and just pinpointed on the map using GPS latitude, longitude, time date stamps to place pins on a map to show location.
Okay. And how many summaries have you prepared?
I've prepared 2 at this time.
Okay. And were those summaries prepared with data you verified from Alex Cox's Homer J. Maximus account?
Yes.
And that is the same data that you received included with that certificate of authenticity
That is correct.
we introduced earlier. Okay. Your Honor, the state would ask for State's Exhibit, what's been marked as State's Exhibit 17, be shown to the defense and then handed to the witness.
Do you want it handed to the witness or put on the easel, Mr. Wood?
We can put it on the easel.
We'll just put it over the top of the previous exhibit.
Oh,
Would you like that handed directly to the witness?
Your Honor, I actually would like to have the, before I enter that into evidence. Well, yeah, before I ask for that, I'd ask for the State's Exhibit 17 to be entered into evidence.
Okay. Mr. Pryor, any objection to that?
I think a little more foundation would be necessary.
That's fine.
Hold up here, Madam Bailiff. Sounds like Mr. Wood is going to lay some more foundation. Would you like that exhibit handed to the witness?
Your Honor, yes, I'd be fine.
Okay.
Detective, do you recognize State's Exhibit 17?
I do. I prepared this.
Okay. What data did you use to prepare that with?
The location data that I had obtained from the Google account, Homer J. Maximus.
Okay. And was that data verified with the Homer J. Maximus account?
As far as verified, that I have checked and double checked my locations from the map overview to the GPS or latitude, longitude given by Google.
Okay. And how did you prepare that?
Well, there's a number of ways you can prepare it. This particular aerial photograph, we just, you can do this using Google Earth, Google Maps, Ping Maps, or Bing Maps, Microsoft, anyone. If you enter a location with the GPS coordinates, doesn't matter, from my experience, anyone that I've used will always come up with the same waypoints.
Okay. Your Honor, this time I'd ask the State's Exhibit 17 be entered into evidence. And I'd add that that's pursuant to Idaho Rule of Evidence 1006, which allows for summaries to be prepared of voluminous data.
Mr. Pryor?
Judge, I don't have a problem with how he's applying 501. The difficulty is he has a demonstrative exhibit that he's trying to mark without any foundation of what's on that in terms of the picture and what it represents. So there's still a foundation problem here.
State's more than happy to lay that foundation, Your Honor.
I'd like that laid out so that there's a clear record of exactly what that picture that is in Officer Stubbs' hands represents. So I need some more foundation in that regard, Judge.
All right.
Detective
Mr. Woods,
Stubbs,
please do so.
the base layer of that summary document you have, what does it purport to be?
This overhead view is of the property of 202 East, 1900 North, the Chad Daybell property.
Okay. And have you been at that property?
I have been at this property, yes.
And are you familiar with the layout of the property and landmarks on that property?
I am.
Okay. And is that base layer, that image, is that a true and accurate representation, to your knowledge, of what that property looks like?
It is.
Okay. And then what layers have you added to that summary?
So besides the photograph itself, I have added a, if you will, type of table of contents at the bottom where I can explain the other things that I put on here, which would be red triangles that are specified by a number next to them that correlate with the latitude and longitude that I have placed on this map. Other than those things, that is the only thing I've added to this photograph.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would move
There
forward.
won't be an objection this time.
Exhibit 17 will be admitted.
Your Honor, before 17 is published, the state would ask that what's been marked as State's Exhibit 18 would be shown to the defense and then handed to the witness.
Exhibit 18 will be handed to the witness.
Detective, do you recognize State's Exhibit 18?
I do.
Is it one of the summaries that you testified to earlier?
Yes, this is a second summary.
Did you prepare that summary with data you verified came from Alex Cox's Homer J. Maximus Google account?
Yes, I did.
What is the base layer of that image purport to be?
The base layer of this is the apartment complex at 565 Pioneer Road, where both Lori Vallow, Daybell, and Alex Cox resided.
Judge, and I want to be clear that he's referring to Lori Vallow and Alex Cox, and he did use the Daybell last name, but I want to make it clear that he's in no way implying that Chad Daybell was part of that. Is that correct? Living in that residence?
As living here?
As living in that residence that's in your hand right now.
That's correct.
Just so we have a clear record, Judge, because the Daybell name was used.
The record will so reflect.
How did you prepare that summary?
Again, this was an aerial photograph taken. There's been a couple layers added to this. This image I received from our GIS department, which is the department of the city who maps, if you will, all of the city. Also their, if you will, the boundaries of residents and so forth and so on with addresses and so forth. So the second layer shows these apartments and the apartment numbers associated with the individual apartments. Again, my table of contents at the bottom right, that I received that data off of the Google location services I had received from Google with the Homer J. Maximus account.
Okay. Your Honor, the state would ask that State's Exhibit 18 be entered into evidence.
Judge, I would ask if there's an identifying factor telling me the date of that summary, because there's been no representation of the exact date that that summary represents, so I would like that from the witness.
There's been an objection as to foundation with the summary. Mr. Wood, do you wish to lay that objection?
Detective, what are the dates associated with the data you entered onto that image?
The reference numbers, is that what we're referring to? The GPS coordinates I placed on here?
Yes.
They are September 9th, 3 of those on September 9th. Also, September 14th and September 6th are all dates that I've associated on this map.
Okay. Your Honor, this time we'd ask that State's Exhibit 18 be entered into evidence.
Judge, just clarification in lieu of objection, if I may.
Mr. Pratt, if you'll speak up just a little bit, I'm having
Sorry, just
difficulty.
clarification and that If I can inquire in aid of objection, Judge, just very briefly.
You may.
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer, September 9th, you said there are 3 readings at that particular point. Is that correct?
I have mapped 3 different,
Right.
Yes.
And those represent just Alex Cox, is that correct?
not Alex Cox, but the device belonging to Alex Cox.
Okay, and then on the 14th of September, it's the device belonging to Alex Cox as well. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And then on the 6th of September, it's the device belonging to Alex Cox. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And you already foresaw, excuse me, you already anticipated my question is that's merely just a device that in no way can establish whether or not the person is present at the time of those locations. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. Nothing else, Judge. Thank you.
Mr. Pryor, I feel like your questions were cross-examination questions. Any objection to the admission of Exhibit 18?
No, Judge.
Exhibit 18 will be admitted.
Thank you. Your Honor, I'd ask that Exhibit 18 be published and be placed on the easel.
Would you like that placed over the previous exhibit that's on the easel, Mr. Wood?
Yes, please. Or
Do you want,
whatever's easiest for court personnel. Your
do you
Honor.
want both of those summaries to be visible as you're questioning the witness?
One at a time, Your Honor. We'll start with 18, then go back to 17.
Okay, why don't we take a brief recess right now? We're going to crank the air conditioner in this courtroom for just a moment, see if we can cool it down by 10 or 50 degrees. And we'll go back on the record here in 15 minutes. It's 2:30, so why don't we plan on going back on the record at about 10 minutes to 3 o'clock. We'll be back on the record. Took a brief recess to cool it down in here. We were in the middle of direct examination of Detective Stubbs. And Mr. Wood, I think you had just admitted 17 and 18 into evidence. It looks like you have 18 on the easel right now. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you may proceed with your direct examination.
Your Honor, I wonder if I could adjust that so that I can see the easel as well.
That's fine. Do you need to scoot it back towards the wall?
I think so. Counsel, please.
Yes, thank you.
Judge, can you see?
I can.
Your Honor, due to the nature of what Detective Stubbs is going to be testifying to, we'd ask that he be able to stand next to the easel and put on a mask.
That's fine. Mr. Wood, why don't you don yours while he does that? There's a laser pointer as well, Mr. Wood. I don't know if you've explained that to Detective Stubbs. Okay. Hold up here. Do we, if he's going to be touching the exhibit, why don't we put some gloves on the witness here? If there's going to be anybody else that's touching it. There's some right here. It's fine.
All right, Detective, now that Exhibit 18 has been published, can you, since we took a break, can you just briefly summarize again what Exhibit 18 is and how you prepared it?
So this was an aerial photograph taking of this apartment complex, April 2000 is when the photograph was taken. What we did was we took, I made this table of contents here, which I've numbered 1, 2, 3, 8, and 9. Those numbers correlate with the red triangles that I had placed on this map in 2 different locations and represent from the Google documents the location services for the Homer J. Maximus account. these latitude and longitudes correlate with these triangles. Now, also accompanied on this map, along with those records from the Excel spreadsheet, as I mentioned, 28,000 plus pages. The number here, in reference number, on the far left column of that Excel spreadsheet is the quick reference 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on down the page. This number correlates with that line on it, if you will. Next are the coordinates that Google provided for us. Next to that is the date and time that these locations were logged through Google on that account. And the very last line over here is margin or radius of error from these findings from Google.
And are all the margins of error the same?
No. Depending on the one, they range, as you can see here, if you can see, from 4 meters and a couple at 15-meter radius of error.
On Exhibit 18, why did you focus on the coordinates you focused on?
Mainly because of two things. These are 2 residents where Alex Cox resided in 107 and Lori Daybell resided in 175.
Okay. Was there anything significant about the dates?
As far as the dates go, 1, 2, and 3 are dated the 9th of September, 2019, in the early morning hours of that day.
What is the timestamp on? Can you point to pin number 3?
Here in the parking lot.
And what is the timestamp on that?
Number 3 is 02:42 hours and 2 seconds.
Okay. And what was the date on that?
That was the September 9th,
Okay.
2019.
And can you point to pin number 2?
Pin number 2 is almost in the same location in the parking lot.
And what is the timestamp on that?
Pin number 2 is 02:42 and 11 seconds.
Okay. And can you point at pin number 1?
Same location with this triangle here.
Okay. And what is the timestamp on that?
That would be 03:37:22.
Okay. What is the margin of error on pin number 3?
Pin number 3 is at 4 meters.
What is the margin of
Judge,
error?
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. He said 4 meters or 4D? 4, thank you.
What is the margin of error on pin number 2?
4 meters.
And what is the margin of error on pin number 1?
4 meters.
Now, let's talk really quickly about the timestamp. When you receive Google records, are they in mountain time?
No.
How is the time relayed on the Google location data?
So on the Excel spreadsheet, they would be in UTC time.
Okay.
UTC here during that time of year is UTC -6 hours.
Okay, thank you. Can you point at pin number 8? Actually, I'm going to ask you to point to pin number 9 first.
Pin number 9 is over in this area here.
Okay. What is the timestamp on pin number 9?
Pin number 9 is the September 6th, 2019 at 2:56 a.m. and 13 seconds.
Okay, and what's the margin of error or radius of error on that?
15 meters.
Okay. And can you give us the same information on pin number 8?
Pin number 8 is the 14th of September, 2019 at 01:21 and 43 seconds in the AM.
And what is the margin or radius of error on pin number 8?
That again is 15 meters.
All right, Your Honor, I'd ask to publish State's Exhibit 17 at this time.
No objection.
Now on the easel is exhibit 17. Is that correct, Mr. Wood?
Yes. And again, just to clarify for the record, taking a break, can you just briefly summarize again what State's Exhibit 17 is?
This is an aerial photograph of the Chad Daybell property.
Okay, and where is that located?
202 East 1900 South in Fremont County.
And did you prepare that summary in the same manner as State's Exhibit 18?
Yes, I did.
How many data points have you plotted on that summary?
4 data points.
Okay. Can you point to data point or location number 5?
Location number 5 is in this area here.
Okay. What is the timestamp on that?
Timestamp of September 9th, 2019 at 9:21 and 36 seconds in the AM.
Okay, what's the margin of error on that?
That would be 6 meters.
Can you point to location number 4?
This area here.
Mm-hmm. What is the timestamp on that?
Timestamp of September 9th, 2019 at 10:57 and 03 seconds in the AM.
And what's the margin of error?
5 meters.
Detective, can you point at location 7 on that summary?
Here.
Yes. What is the timestamp on location 7?
Timestamp of 09:56 and 28 seconds in the AM.
Okay. What's the margin of error on that?
4 meters.
And finally, can you point to location number 6?
Number 6 is in the same area, general area.
And what is the timestamp on that?
9/23/2019 at 10:02:19 hours in the AM.
And what's the margin of error?
3 meters.
Thank you. Detective, I think you take your seat again.
Detective, when you've been seated, you can take off your glove and mask if you'd like.
Detective, you testified about the contents of the Homer J. Maximus Google location data. Are there other data points located on the Daybell property in that in the data that was given to you on your search warrant return?
There are additional data points in the area, yes.
And are there additional data points near or on the near the Lori Vallow apartment at 565 Pioneer Road?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a reason you didn't map out all the data points on the Homer J. Maximus Google location data?
Well, the reason being is because the file is so massive that it would take, I can't even imagine how long it would take to put all the waypoints on a map.
Okay. Say I have no further questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Cross-examination, Mr. Pryor.
Thank you, Judge. Initially, when you went out there for the interview of Miss Vallow, and I believe that was in November, is that right?
That is correct.
And the date in November was what, officer?
The 26th.
Now, the purpose of that initial visit was a welfare check, was it not?
It was.
Okay, so it was a preliminary matter, is that correct?
Yes.
And you're a detective with which law enforcement agency?
The Rexburg Police Department.
And as the Rexburg Police Department, is it your policy that even for preliminary matters such as a welfare check, you are required to have your body cam on?
It is not a requirement. However, since I've been issued a body camera, I always make it a practice to wear it when I go to talk to people outside the office.
And that is because you want to accurately and correctly reflect what someone says to you. Would that be the case?
That's right.
And you want to accurately provide a record of what was transpired because people make mistakes, correct?
Yes, people can make mistakes.
And police officers are obviously people as well, and police officers make mistakes when they're in the course of doing an investigation. There are times when they may not recite things exactly the way they are. So a camera is a tool to help you do that. Is that correct?
Your Honor, I'm going to object. I think that's more testimony than it is a question.
Mr. Pryor, what's your question?
The question is that it's a good practice to have a body cam and record a conversation when you're interviewing any witness, correct?
That is my personal feeling for me.
And you're doing that out of experience, correct?
Correct.
Now, there was some previous testimony about Mr. Cox residing in Unit 175. Do you have any information that suggests he was residing in Unit 175?
I don't have that knowledge whether he was or wasn't residing, other than my body cam footage saying that he was there.
Okay. And during the time that you went there on the 26th of November, Mr. Daybell wasn't there, correct?
That day, I never saw for myself Mr. Daybell.
And there was an acknowledgement that her brother was there, though, correct?
That is correct.
And then on the second trip, I don't recall seeing whether there was an acknowledgement that Mr. Cox was there. Was he there again the second time, do you recall?
I do not know.
Okay. All right. But again, you didn't see Mr. Daybell there, correct?
That is correct.
And your belief is that when you went to Unit 175, it was because you believed that was Lori Vallow's residence. Is that right?
That is right.
And your data points seem to suggest that you're looking at Unit 175 and Unit 107.
Correct.
And there's a reason for that, is there not?
Yes.
That's because somebody lives in Unit 107, right?
We believed one of the family members lived in
And who
107.
would that be?
Alex Cox.
And who lives in 175?
Lori Vallow.
So just so we put this into terms that I can understand, when you're talking about 4 meters, you're talking approximately 12 feet.
Approximately.
And when you're talking about 15 meters, you're talking about 45 feet.
Approximately.
Okay. I am curious, and this is in the way of an explanation. When you're talking UC time -6, give me an example of what UC time -6 is. It looks like the clock says 3:05. So what would be an example of that?
Well, if you will, there's a point where they actually start recording time. And as you go through time zones, you gain or lose whatever an hour from the starting point of, if you will, a time starting.
Okay,
And
so-
then because we're in mountain time,
Right.
at that time of year, you take the general time and you subtract 6 hours from that.
So when you say 242 in pin number 2, in this example, and it's 242, do we go back 6 hours earlier?
No, you would add 6 from UTC time. You minus 6 to
So
get
if
to
I
our
could
time
ask- If
zone.
I could ask you to go back up to the exhibit, would you mind doing that for me?
Mr. Pryor, Exhibit 17 or Exhibit 18?
Well, I'm going to start with 17, then we'll go to 18 after that. Because I think 17 is still up there, is it not, officer? All right, so that one is number,
This is 17.
that's right, I'm sorry, maybe I misspoke. So let's talk with pin number 5. On pin number 5, you said it was on September 9th, and you put down the time as 9:21 a.m. Is that correct, officer? All right. And then you put down the time of variance or margin of error, I guess is the appropriate term, based on what I've read, and margin of error is 6 meters, right?
Correct.
So is that actually 9:21 a.m. on September 9th, or is there a additional time that needs to be added to that?
It was, in our time, 9:21.
Okay,
However, when you talk to a carrier of a phone or Google or whoever else, they generally send you this layout in UTC time. So depending on if you're on the East Coast, if you're here, wherever you are, you can do that margin and deduct those hours or add.
so you're the one who came up with the calculation as to what these proximate times are, is that correct?
The only thing I did was minus UTC time minus 6 to get our local time.
Okay, all right. And then again, on number 7, pin number 7, what was the time on that?
09:56 and 28 seconds in the AM.